live. We're live. Hey, everybody. How are you? I'm here, Scott Taylor, the Data Whisperer. Welcome to another episode of Tell Me Your Data Story with me, Scott Taylor, Data Whisperer, here at Data Whisperer World Headquarters, high atop the Fairweather Towers and Resort in beautiful Black Rock, Connecticut, on the shores of the Herman Beach. Take a look in Google Maps, see if you can find us. Thrilled today to have a buddy of mine, George Firican, on here. We'll talk about him a little bit later. But let us know where you're calling in from. As usual, we got a couple people logging in. Let us know where you are in the comments. I've got a different sort of setup here, so you might see me a little bit distracted as I try and manage the technical side. But a couple of things, as usual, I want to share with you. Where are they here? So we got George coming in. We will talk about him later, the video aficionado on LightOnData. I love his stuff. That's how we met, actually, over all of this. And finally, we have a secret word thing going on. We do this secret data word. We'll see if George says today's secret data word or not, but we try and do the secret data word on Friday. Finally, my buddy Jonathan James Kramer said the secret data word, which was silo. Silo. How could I had 8 interviews with people on data and not a single person said the word silo. So we'll see if George says the secret word today. It is not, I'll give you a hint. It's not silo. We don't repeat that there. So it's a data word that often people would say. Anyway, let's see who's calling in. We got a couple folks watching. Love to see it in the comments. Let me know where you're calling in from or watching in from. I will mention that my inspiration for the secret data word are 2 of my great influences in my life, Groucho Marx and Pee Wee Herman, who both had a secret word kind of thing that they did. Of course, Groucho starting it on You Bet Your Life. Say the secret word, win $100. And then Pee Wee's Playhouse of my, not of my youth, but my children's youth. I certainly watched it every single time it was on there, where he had a secret word. And when they said the secret word, everybody screamed real loud. So we're not going to split $100. We'll try not to scream real loud. But if you do say the secret word, you're going to be put into a drawing at the end of the year for one of these. This is an official, genuine imitation Rosetta Stone from the British Museum. Okay, so if you're in the data space, you got to love the Rosetta Stone. It's a metaphor. It's metaphor everybody to understand data better. So we're going to talk about some of that craziness a little bit too. What else we got here? I wanted to share some what I think are some bad data ideas. So these are ideas that I think are bad about data, but they're not about bad data, if that makes sense. So you know me, I like to talk a lot about the way people talk about stuff. And I find a lot of exceptions to what I think could be better ways for people to talk about stuff. And there's just a couple of things. So in this episode of Bad Data Ideas is all about acronyms, you know, all those things where you spell it out with the initials. And let's see if any of these work. I don't think any of them will work here. The first one was an agency, a public relations agency that was all about good data. That's a nice idea, right? You think they're going to get somewhere. So the Good Data Public Relations Agency, unfortunately, their initials were GDPR. That doesn't work. Nobody likes that. That's not going to fly. You don't want to say, hi, I'm from GDPR. That's not going to work. Another one, a little more topical, maybe a little off, maybe too soon here, but the idea of a company origination verification identifier. They thought this was going to be huge. This company who's going to do this company origination verification identifier, COVID. That's not on that. That's not a good data idea. How about looking at the Internet of Things? If you ever look at the Internet of Things, obviously everything's got to connect to everything else when it should. The Internet of Things, big, huge initiative. A lot of folks are doing in terms of smart devices and everything across the IoT. You got to have identification in the Internet of Things. But when you spell that out, it spells out idiot. Again, another one, not going to work. So not going to work with that one. Oh, we got Susan Walsh in here coming in for yo ho ho. Anyway, these 3 bad data ideas. Don't go there. Watch what your name is when you spell it out with the initials. You don't want any of those. But speaking of good ideas, let's talk about good data ideas. I want to thank our new sponsor. Happy to have them on board with the program here. Information Builders, actionable insight, trusted data. They do BI, they do data management, software and services. So you know how I look at the space. They've got actionable analytics, that's the business intelligence side. They got trusted data, that is the data management side. So as far as I'm concerned, they cover both truth and meaning, the 2 things that everybody want to cover in the data business. Determine the truth first, then derive the meaning. Love these folks at Information Builders, working on them on one of their events coming up as that gets maybe a little reconfigured based on what's going on, but we're definitely doing some cool stuff a little later in the year. I want to thank Kate Miller and the team for supporting us on Tell Me Your Data Story. So anybody else calling in? We got Robert, we got Susan, we got all our favorite fans here calling in for sure. Our guest today, George Firican. George and I met on LinkedIn. We actually met on LinkedIn through kind of transfer of content back and forth. He is just a maniac like I am with all these data videos. If you have not watched George's data videos, 10 guiding principles for data governance, I think that's how I met him. I watched it and there were 10 things he went through really briskly. And I just felt like, if you're not doing all 10 of these, what's your problem? Okay, so I talk to people all the time about how they're managing their data governance program, their data management initiative, how they talk about it, what to do next. Take a look at that video, the 10 guiding principles. You should be doing all 10, no matter what. But he's got, 5 reference data characteristics. What is reference data? All kinds of informational videos he puts on his site, LightOnData. He's also very creative. He's got his now famous Star Wars data memes. There's good data, there's bad data. And then he goes on all the classics here. Lord of the Rings, one does not simply cleanse the data. Okay, so if you want some creative kind of ways to look at data, you got to look at George's stuff. This one I saw, and I don't know if you noticed, but I really felt like there was this separated at birth thing going on here. Very similar kind of look between the 2 of them, which is obviously a compliment. So let's say hello to George here. Everybody say hello to George. Let's bring him on. Let me bring him on the stream. George, there you are. Here we are. Can you hear me? Hi, George.
Hello.
How
hey,
are
Scott.
you? How you doing?
Good. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday here. Is it Monday? I loved your post you had before about just like, what day is it, right?
Yeah.
Cross it out.
Somebody
Monday,
said it's Blur Day.
Blur Day. Yeah. I don't remember what day it is here. It's just the days just flying by. They all kind of blend into each other. So there we go. We got some applauding going on here. Edward. Hey, Scott. Big fan. Thanks, Edward. Thanks for calling in. So, George, where are you calling in from? Let people get a little sense of your background and what you're doing.
I'm from Vancouver, British Columbia, and that's in Canada on the West Coast.
Right.
Beautiful here. Do come visit if you haven't. But if you notice my accent, I'm originally from Romania, Eastern Europe. So moved to Canada 21 years ago.
21 years ago. No, I love Vancouver. I've been to Vancouver. I will be there again. Once they let us out of all of this, once they let us go places again. Yes. We will be there again for sure. So what's your data story, George? How did you get started? We'll get into some of the stuff you're doing now, which is really cool. How'd you get started in the data business? What was like your first data job?
I sort of fell into it. And isn't it funny that I think this is an answer for most people working in data management, data governance, right? They kind of fall into it, which in a way, I think it's not a good sign, right?
We want people to say, I studied data my whole life. I knew I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to be a data manager. Yeah, you're right. I think it's like 9 out of 9 people went, it was an accident. Stumbled on it there. So
no, I do think we got to get that education going from when people are, in their school years and understand the importance of data, right? And everything that surrounds it and really want to do stuff with it in their personal life too. I think data affects us all in everything that we do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
If we see a wrong statement on our bank account, well, we take action, don't we?
Yeah. Right.
So,
That's excellent.
right.
Yeah. Right. That's bad
So,
data right there. Yeah.
exactly. So we should do that in our workplace as well. We should all take ownership.
My example of bad data, explaining to my kids,
Yeah.
like when you go to a hotel and you can't get in, the key doesn't work in your hotel door, and the light turns red. That means the physical key is working, the hardware is working, the software is working, but there's a problem with the data because they forgot to, click whatever attribute they do that says, okay, you're a guest. So, I mean, master data problem, data management problem right there that everybody's gonna fix. So how'd you stumble into it? So you were...
So my data story. So I used to be a programmer. So I think one of my first projects that I worked on was an accounting software. And anyways, I was working on the back end mostly and on the relational database. And then once it was launched, I was part of the integration team for this one client in order to replace their existing accounting software with this new one. And of course, at the time, at least our manager did not invest a lot into documentation. So they needed people with experience that actually knew, that worked on the software, to come on with that knowledge on the metadata, the tables, the relations, and everything, to be able to help with that integration to make it a bit more smoother, right?
Okay.
And I mean, those were billable hours, but to them, it seemed that documentation was not worth the money. So they thought, okay, well, let's just bring people that have this in their head. But this is a funny story. So we went to this company and we started to profile the data a little bit to kind of see what's going on and how can we integrate it into this new software that we built. And we found this one record called Fred Flintstone.
Fred Flintstone. Okay.
No joke.
No joke. Yeah.
And it was, an employee, but it was a fake employee. But it looked like they were actually assigning salary, even had a cell phone assigned to his record. So all this money was kind of sitting in this company in this some sort of a holding account or something. It was never spent. But it actually, it was on their reports. And they've never discovered that, hey, they've left this account, which is used for testing when they first implemented the previous software.
Right.
They just left it in there. And we just discovered it. And it just looked too weird to be true. Fred Flintstone, right?
Right. Yeah.
And it was a fake account, but nobody noticed for years.
So you found that, and then you just realized, okay, there's something in this data management program. So how do you get from being a programmer, finding these weird anomalies, to being, what I think is one of the clearest voices in the data management, data governance space today through your content? So it's a bit of a journey there, right?
Yeah. So after a few years working for startups, and I worked in web development as well, I sort of went and transitioned into the business analysis project management world. So that's when you interact a lot more with the business and understand their needs and how their needs and requirements really impact the software and the technical deliverables, and the other way around, right? I think you understand more about the middle ground and the implications and how they both gel together. Whereas before, I think you kind of see yourself in one camp versus the other.
Okay.
At least that's what my experience was. And then I was really involved in this one project where really data quality was as its core. It was very important to get that right in order for this to be successful. I mean, no surprise there, but this one really was stated in the scope of the project. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of, I got to know a bit more about data quality management. And of course, you can't really do proper data quality management without data governance.
Right.
So again, kind of learning on the job, and then sort of went straight into this whole data governance domain. And here I am.
And here you are. So when did you start with your content stuff? Because that's how we met. I mean, the first time I met you, we haven't met physically yet. We're supposed to be in Berlin in a couple of weeks.
Next week,
next week. So I won't see you there, obviously. But what were some of your first videos? When did you really start that? Because I think you've done a wonderful job with a lot of that content.
Well, and Scott, I mean, you were an inspiration, you and Kate, actually, because you kept putting stuff up, and hey, I got to model the best, right? So I think I started maybe a year and a half ago, not too long ago.
Okay.
It was a bit scary to be in front of the camera at first, for some reason. I mean, there's nobody else there in the room with you, just the blinking red light. But as soon as that came on, was, oh, what's going on there? But I think everything's okay now. So yeah, so I did start putting all these videos together to, again, get the message out there that data is important. Data should be treated as an asset, and everything related to it. That especially data governance, I feel it's misunderstood. There's a lot of vendors out there that are selling products that are trying to attach themselves to data governance because, especially now with GDPR and everything, privacy, security, it's coming more into focus. But I also feel there's a lot of confusion on what that is. Sometimes it's made to be a bit more complex than it is. I mean, yes, it's not easy, but it's not rocket science either.
Right? I think that, and you know me, I always go on how people describe it.
Yeah.
So what struck me was the clarity of your 10 data governance principle. You should be doing these 10 things. Very clear, very straightforward, very business oriented, which is unique because most people spend their time figuring, trying to explain all this technical stuff, which is important. That's what gets really, really complicated, as you suggest. So,
yeah. But like I think you mentioned this a few times, when you do talk about these things with the business, try not to mention data, right? Try to mention really what does that mean to them?
Yeah.
Not all this technical jargon and.
Yeah. I think you got to say data, but I think you just don't want to go too deep and sort of, again, into the how, right? You want to stick with the why. So you started building these. So how many videos you got out there? You got this big site, right? LightOnData. How's that doing?
Yeah. It's doing well. Yeah, doing a little rebrand right now. I actually just launched a pre-sale of a course on business glossaries and how you can build your own.
Oh, excellent.
So that's up as of last night at midnight.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, something for me to do on weekends, I guess.
Yeah.
And it's going. I'm releasing a video every Thursday so far. So it's a lot of work, as you know, editing and coming up with the content and everything.
Yeah, well, I think you're similar to me. You like to have a little bit of timing. You like to have a little bit of humor, a couple of effects in there, not just this straight talking head video, or a lot of people, just have it done like straight up their nose, and you got to look at that. It's like, I don't know why people think other people want to look at that. That's a completely unnatural posture. If you were talking to somebody that way, right, it would just say back off. So, but anyway, maybe there should be social distancing from your phone, that you get it, far enough away so it's not that
exactly.
up your nose thing. So what are you doing now? So, in your day job, beyond the LightOnData empire that you're building, your educational threads, all these great videos, what do you do?
So my day-to-day job, and right now I'm during my lunch hour. So hi everyone, if you're
perfect.
But I do work for the University of British Columbia. And I am their director of data governance and business intelligence. So I'm focused on the fundraising and alumni engagement arm of the university. And especially during these times, it's definitely important. We're trying to raise about $215 million every year just to fund student programs and awards and research and all the good stuff. So there's obviously, and luckily, a lot of data that's funding all these decisions and seeing where and how we could more efficiently get this money from.
So you manage so the data is alumni database?
It's alumni database, donor. Donor, community, friends, prospects, exactly. Yeah, a lot of great stuff. And I'm so lucky that I'm working with amazing teams, and especially my team, on the business intelligence sides and data analytics and records. They're really awesome.
So what are some of the crazier things you've run into? I mean, is there anything other than was there a Fred Flintstone version at? There
was a Barney Rubbles.
The Barney Rubble? Did you find? No. Fred Flintstone in BC. Did that work? Was that the address? No.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, yes. No, not things that I can't talk about because I'm still currently working there.
Oh, right. Yeah, we don't want to share too much. But any crazy things you've run into? And I know I've had one where We were looking at a customer file, and they matched it to a bunch of donut shops because in the name of the customer, it actually said "do not use." So that got like concatenated, and all of a sudden, all these old dead records were linked to these donut shops. So that kind of stuff happens, you know.
Well, so occasion. I have one, and I can talk about this because you know, I know this guy, but his name being Scott as well, Scott Campbell.
No relation.
Scott Campbell, right? So he put together obviously an email address after he graduated, and he just couldn't understand why he wasn't getting any emails, and especially from the applications for job applications. No callbacks, nothing, no emails. And it's because he wrote his email address as S. Campbell. So when you put that together, scam, every email client would detect it as being, you know, having the scam keyword in there.
Oh, really?
Filter it out.
That's a keeper. That's the key. Oh, okay. Yeah. So those kind of things happen constantly, right? That kind of that kind of ridiculousness. Well, that's great. So you know, sort of shifting a little bit, you talk to business leaders, or how would they characterize themselves in a university? They're still managing kind of the university side. They're not necessarily data experts. Correct. So when you have to explain to them the value of what you're doing, how do you start to go about that without getting technical? What are some tips you've picked up?
Well, I think first it's good to have that informal conversation with them, to first know a little bit more about what they do, what their challenges are, and even how they are as a personality. Mm-hmm. Because there's different types of people that like to receive information in different ways, right? Some, you know, they prefer that presentation style. Some just some sort of an informal discussion with a story that's relevant to them. They love that storytelling aspects. Right. And some just love those spreadsheets and to see the numbers, right? And for them, they're very visual in that way. And they want to see, okay, well, if I do invest in this, what's that going to cost me? Or how many records do I have right now? How many do I need to improve in order to get what I want? Things like that, right? So I feel they're mostly these three different types, and knowing the delivery that you need to bring to them really helps. Mm-hmm. Because if you're going to tell that personal story with the person that enjoys the numbers and the details, it's not going to go through, right? So that's one. And the other part is, as I mentioned, I think you need to learn about what their challenges are so you can make that message relevant to them.
Sure.
You always need to let them know what's in it for them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And you know me, I'm a big fan of just sort of somehow, how do you take the strategic intentions of whatever that enterprise is? You know, it could be a university, it could be a manufacturing company, it could be a bank, and tie the need for better data to it. Because my view is it's everywhere, right? There's not going to be a company anymore who's going to go, you know, we don't need data. We're doing fine. You know, we're not interested in leveraging data. We're not, you know, said no one. So there's a big gap between that kind of idea of being able to really take advantage of what data can bring to an organization and then doing it. That's a massive gap. And there's so much fluff and craziness in the space, and hyperbole and exaggeration and bad poetry, as I'm fond of saying, that confuses folks. So it's just kind of getting down to the basics. And a lot of what I love about your stuff is, all right, you need, no matter what, who doesn't need a business glossary? Is there an enterprise out there that doesn't need a business glossary? No.
That's what I think. Yeah. But you know what? A lot of people, I mean, come in with all these assumptions that are incorrect, right? So you definitely need a business glossary to sort that out. But they also, you know, think that, oh, you know, I have a piece of paper with some terms. That's my business glossary. No, that should not be it.
Okay. So you got to have. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I wanted to mention from your previous point is a lot of companies do mention, yes, data is important. We need that, but they're not really investing into it, right? And sometimes I kind of feel like the whole data management domain right now is where maybe IT used to be in the 90s, where it was really underappreciated. Maybe it still is in some areas now.
Yeah.
But right, I mean, you know, it was one of the first areas that we're looking into to do cuts when things were going wrong. It's like, oh no, we don't need IT as much. or everything, they wouldn't acknowledge it if everything was working well. But as soon as something was going on that was incorrect, they would call IT. And that's when it would come into view.
Then they realize,
and I feel the whole data management, data analytics, data governance, data quality is sort of in that same place right now where IT used to be.
Well, we hope so. At least getting to a point where people start to appreciate it when it doesn't work, right? Mm-hmm. So, I was wondering, we only got a couple minutes left here, but I was wondering around the data glossary aspect. That's kind of representative of a lot of companies' first stab at really trying to get that consensus around the basic terminology of the business. Any tips with that? Because, you go in a room and with 10 people and you get 11 definitions of customer.
Right.
How do you start to cut through that to get beyond it? Because I don't think things like customer are really that different. Shouldn't be that disparate in a single organization.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, there are so many tips and tricks, but I think it's really great to start to do your homework first, to not come in with a blank piece of paper to start from scratch. It's always easier if you start with a draft, and it's always easier if that draft comes from a reputable source of information, like some sort of a third party that's like ISO, for example, or some sort of an industry standard that you can relate to, or like if you're doing describing financial terms, just go to CRA's website, for example, and they don't have great definitions, by the way, but it's a good start.
Yeah. Right? I mean, I'm always, it's really remarkable to me how many people do start with that blank sheet of paper, with that blank whiteboard, and go, but you're running a business already. How about we just come up with, here's all the different ways we call the same thing. That's pretty popular. And then try and reconcile all that. But there's that cultural aspect of people kind of want to have their own terminology. And I just feel like it stands in the way of so much progress, because it's really not about that so much. It's about using that vocabulary to then move to the next step.
Exactly. I mean, listen, you're not, working for Webster either, right? So you don't need to get it that perfect, but yeah.
Do you think this time with everybody's story, I was wondering if this might be a unique opportunity with everybody kind of at home, hunkering down, probably a little less, kind of fervent about some stuff. If it might not be an interesting opportunity to start to get some consensus that you might not get otherwise if everybody was sitting in the same room. What do you think? It just sort of struck me that maybe there might be kind of a cultural opportunity to get more consensus from folks now than maybe, 3 months ago. I don't know. What do you think?
I hope so. I'm finding, at least from my point of view, I find the meetings to be a bit more efficient.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe people don't want to spend as much in front of the computer anymore. And they're like, okay, well, let's reach that consensus. Let's get it over with. So yeah, maybe have something there.
So you can kind of, so one tip, if you're out there trying to figure out and finalize your data glossary, your business glossary, why don't you just get everybody on a Zoom call and go, okay, we're not leaving until we get this. And maybe you can shortcut stuff when we all come back together again. They can go, hey, it's done. This is perfect. Right. So anyway, so George, always great to talk to you. We're going to wrap it up here at the bottom of the hour. So stay safe out there, and we'll see you on YouTube. Where else can people find you? Obviously, lightsondata.com.
Follow me on LinkedIn. I always love to meet new people, interact with them. So shoot me a message.
And keep it going from there. All right. Keep the videos coming. Keep the memes coming. You got a lot of classic movies to work your whole meme motif through, I'm sure. So I'm leaving that to you. I haven't touched that. That's totally your territory there. I won't touch that. So anyway.
And definitely do more puppet shows.
Yeah, more puppet shows are coming. We got the chief dog officer right here. He's ready to go. We got the ITB. It's coming.
That's my favorite.
And the ITB. The backstory of the ITB, since it's my show, I can take as long as I want. So that came from when I was at Dun & Bradstreet. And they had a internal video request to just anybody to talk about like confidence. Okay. So it was like why you should be confident and meeting preparation, and just it was like a basic HR thing. So I did one of just me straight, and that went pretty well. And I had all these jokes about Dun & Bradstreet that I put together that I sort of used in presentations or whatever. So then suddenly it hits me. I have this character and it's a B, and I named him Dean B. Dean B. And it was like one of those, how could nobody have ever thought of that before? Dean B. So that became, so his original incarnation was Dean B. And I did a video of Dean B talking about why everybody should be confident at Dun & Bradstreet. It ended up being the #1 viewed video in the internal kind of version of Netflix that they had there. It was above the leadership holiday greeting. So that's when I knew I really hit it. So there was, most people loved it. A couple people didn't like it. That's always going to happen. But most people, so that's where Dean B came from. And so then I've evolved him into the ITB because Dean B is not quite as broad appeal, but more to come on the puppets for sure. So thank you, George. Stay safe. Back to work, I guess.
Yep.
Cheers.
Thanks, Scott. Cheers.
All right, that's George Firican. I love that guy. So anyway, wrapping it up today, wrapping up another show. Want to thank you. Want to thank George. Want to thank our sponsor, Information Builders, Actionable Insights, Trusted Data. They do both truth and meeting. If you want more information about them, put IB in the comments and we'll follow up. And Thursday, we're going to try this Thursday now at noon. We're kind of adjusting the times to see what works best. We've got Sarah Wooders from Glisten AI. I'm really interested in talking to her because she's with a startup. She's relatively young and very entrepreneurial, her and her partner, Alice, and they are attacking like one of the most ancient data problems out there, which is product attribution, product data, foundational, structured product data. And I'm really interested in hearing their new take on this because it's a Gordian knot of the data business. Nobody's really been able to untie it. And we're all looking for new ideas. So join us on Thursday, noon Eastern Daylight Time, or wherever you are. Thanks for tuning in to Tell Me Your Data Story. This is Scott Taylor again saying, master data is your most important data. Thanks, everybody. Cheers.